I think it's worth talking about, but when I look at it, I would rather be buying that service from people I know, that the money's flowing back into town and getting, moved around the community to a much larger extent than it would be otherwise.
Sure. Welcome back to the Buffalo Community Podcast. We've got an interesting group of fellas here. We've got the City of Buffalo Mayor, Steve Downer, and the Utilities
and IT Director.
Yep, Jason Moosberger.
Moosberger.
Yep.
Been called worse.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you said that because we're going to be talking about utilities.
I know, right?
And again, it's for the people of Buffalo. It's like we kind of did our little show prep here of asking the tough questions of utility costs. That's what you see on the forums all the time. Sure. Why are they the rates they are? What are we doing? Can they get better? Are we in line? Kind of all of that. So, thanks for coming in.
You bet. Thanks for having us.
Who wants to kick us off of right there on the utilities?
Maybe I will say something since I'm the mayor and people expect it. But I would say we're well aware that wastewater rates can be high. And the wastewater rates is probably our biggest concern ourselves from the utility standpoint. The electric is competitive and generally lower than other utilities around us, but sometimes higher. I think the best way to characterize those is they're competitive. Mm-hmm. So, you mentioned the general understanding or thought in the city community that, the Buffalo utility rates are high. And sometimes I wonder how people get that. And it's because everybody knows it, right? And you see it on Facebook. And it may or may not be true. And rate comparisons can be really hard to do because I used to do them. And getting an apples-to-apples comparison can be difficult at best.
Yeah. So maybe their baseline is it's higher than it was last year. Well, what isn't?
The electric rates aren't. They've been stable. Well, the user charge, fixed charge has gone up a couple bucks each of the last 2 years, but the actual per kilowatt hour charge hasn't changed in, 3 years, something like that?
2 to 3 years. I think our wholesale power provider, MMPA, and they do a nice job keeping those wholesale power rates locked in. No rate increase from last year to this year, so we're able to keep those usage charges down. The fixed rate charge does need to go up to kind of keep up with infrastructure, but it's a couple dollars on that usage charge that we increased from last year.
Well, that's good to know because I don't think everybody knows, they just look at the bottom line of what it is, but actual price per, it hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed. That's been stable.
No, on the energy rate, the kilowatt rate.
Yep.
Right.
And you have your June, July, and August months. They're really hot. You run your AC a lot more, you're going to see bigger bills. So those are the seasonal shifts in utility bills that are tough to.
Because when you get your September bill, it's actually for July, isn't it? It's September 1st bill. It's for July's usage.
Be August probably.
So if it's end of September, we're a month behind. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, don't we get I don't live in the city of Buffalo, so you get it the first of the month, right?
September 1st would be July's usage.
July's
you
usage,
correct,
so.
Because we got a meter read. Yep.
Right. So, again, if people don't know that when they are seeing that, say, well, gosh, I'm not using my air conditioning in September.
October is usually that tough month. Exactly.
Yeah, it's August was hot. July was hot. Yep. So, it's just kind of breaking it down of where it is and maybe clarifying how to read your bill.
Yep.
Okay.
When you say, coming up with, an apples to apples comparison is difficult. In term, what else other than to me, it's and I don't have a great understanding of this, and I will by the end of the conversation.
I hope so.
Comparing that per kilowatt seems very straightforward. What other factors make it difficult to just say, here's what we pay per kilowatt? Is kilowatt hour?
Probably the main one would just be the actual usage and where there'll be delineations in a rate depending on how much you use sometimes.
Sure.
And then there's, the market itself. If everything goes into the market, comes out of the market, and when the market goes up, at some point we're affected.
Mm-hmm.
So, and different utilities have, different rates for different sets of customers, and you gotta determine, which set of customers you fall into, and it just can get real complicated in a hurry.
Can you expand that just a little bit, like what type of customer you are?
Well, the city of Buffalo has, how many different rate classifications do we have for electric?
There's more than you'd realize, probably about 7. Our building coordinator would be able to hammer that in. But you have your residential, and then you have your kind of a breakdown of your commercial. You got your big industrial, and then we have the small business commercial kind of broken down in a few different areas. Really, there's probably 4 core ones, but there's a few extra ones in there too.
Okay.
But like your typical residential house is everybody's the same on that.
Yeah,
it's not like
residential's the core.
It's like one neighbor doesn't have a different classification.
No.
All right,
Commercial's
so-
broken down differently.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I just anticipate some of these questions on,
Yep.
from, hey, well, what about this? How do I change my classification?
Sure.
Well, you really, or can you?
It's how much usage you have on the commercial side. Residentially, you're absolutely correct.
Right.
There is no different classes broken out. It's commercial is how much usage you have. If you have a big energy charge, a demand charge,
Sure.
those will impact your rates too. That's just how much usage of the grid you're using.
Sure. So, and then, apples to apples of just, if I think about it, just the usage of anything and everything in Americans, I don't know about you, but we almost have like chargers always permanently put in there, and we don't do a great job of, I would say my kids don't do a great job of shutting lights off. It's almost embarrassing driving up, to the driveway, and I'm like, that one song, every light in the house is on. That's about what it is, and I just want like a big power switch on my phone just to shut them all off. But maybe it's even just maybe be aware and be a little bit unplug stuff just to, if you want to maybe see a difference in the change. Or
For sure. I think any conservation efforts would say turn your lights off, unplug things. It's always going to save you money. Keep the air conditioner at
55.
Yeah, I know. I was in heat mode there. Keep it at 75, 76, even 78. You're going to use it. It's not maybe as comfortable as.
Oh, you guys,
68.
your house is really warm.
Yeah.
But that's mostly gas. So
Yeah.
Yep.
maybe look at, I'm a 68 in the winter. Get a sweatshirt. Do that.
Yeah, I'm
Get a
68 on the
blanket.
heat, and then 75, 76 on the.
Ooh, that's
conditioning.
too warm in the summer. But insulation's a big deal too. There's other conservation efforts you can do. As an example, I was just in during an inspection, 1969 home. This is in Champlin, so it's not even here. It was 4 inches of that old cellulose, and then it was all moved around, and then they had this giant solar system on top. They're like, well, we need to get our bills down. Well, you probably should have put some insulation in the roof. It's probably the biggest one instead of spending, tens of thousands of dollars on solar. But anyway, I digress. Other utilities coming down the pipeline.
As far as just
this is
stuff coming up?
this is a transition into the fiber.
Okay.
Well, did we cover water and sewer enough? I think that's probably our biggest.
Oh yeah, that's what you started with.
When we look at a high rate, what's impacting our customers? It's the water and sewer utilities that have a higher rate when you go and compare to other communities. And the reason why we got there, this is a growing community, wonderful community. It has 2 lakes. Infrastructure is quite a bit different than most communities. You have 26, 27 lift stations. Lift stations are on the collection side. That impacts our amount of assets and capital we have. A lift station today, to put a new one in, is about $1.5 to $2 million. So you look at that. Not every lift station is the same, but that'd be a core lift station.
Sure.
Times 26, that adds up, as far as capital. Water's in a similar boat. You got the water plant. That's very costly. Those are $30 million to build one these days for the size of Buffalo. We have to maintain that plant and try to use that plant as long as we can, because $30 million doesn't come around as often. But miles and miles of distribution for water, miles and miles of collection line, You got the lakes in there, but it was a big growing community. Leaders of the past had to make tough decisions, had to bond to build all that. And we have quite a bit of debt in that water and sewer fund. That's about 40% of the operational budget today. So that increased those rates. We had rate studies done a little before my time.
Handful of years ago now.
2019, 2020. Those were some of the significant rate increases to water and sewer. That's impacting our customers today. And we hope to level some of that debt off. A lot of the debt falls off in 2028. So there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
There is.
And that's some of our goals is to, well, we have, from an operational lens, I maintain a lot of the operational stuff with our leaders. And we've pushed a lot of our capital off till 2028, 2029 as far as projects. There's risks to that. We don't want to push it off too long. We got to make sure we maintain things properly. But we hope rates can improve in the near future, 3 to 4 years. We're in a tough rate period. We have rate studies coming up to maybe help guide us along the way. But pushing that capital off was huge, keeping our O&M, fixing things that don't need a $2 million project, but maybe we need to spend $50,000 to keep it rolling for 5 more years. So those are kind of the bigger decisions we are to overcome this as well.
That's a good point. And the treatment plant itself was built during a time of really rapid growth in the city. And the projections were, the city's going to be so big by a certain time, so you build it to serve that projected need. Well, and shortly after that, you get into, 2008, 9, 10, where I think we were tearing more homes down than were getting built in the city. So there's unused capacity there.
Sure.
It's built for a bigger city.
Yeah.
So, there's costs that go into that. And then if you don't have the usage to pay, for the debt you incurred to build the plant, then, you're in a tough spot there. So there are a number of things that contribute. People made the best decisions they could at the time with the information they had, and you roll along with it. So, but like Jason said, the big thing, I remember, there's graphs we get that display our financial position, make it very understandable. And from, 2028 to 29, there's a big drop off in the debt. So, we will be incurring more going forward because that's the nature of it. You got to maintain things, and parts of the treatment plant were wearing out before they were paid for, and nobody wants to incur debt any more than you have to. But I think, and I was talking to a guy, and he started talking to me about Keynesian economics, which I had to look up afterward. And so it's not this economic theory or that so much as it's like, are you going to fix the leaky pipes or not? Right. And I think you got to be responsible with these things, and I think the city has been. And like Jason said, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and that's where we're at.
So what I'm hearing is like some of these struggles are going back to the early 2000s of where the position of the city was in. We're still
maybe even 80s and 90s.
Yeah,
sure.
Things go way back.
Yeah. So it's. It doesn't. You can't turn a ship on a dime. It's.
Well, no. These utility assets are 30 years or more, oftentimes, and they're paid for over 10 or 20 years, and these are long-term decisions and spending decisions. So
Sure.
I want to make sure I understand something. You said that 40% of the operating budget is like water, like
it's paying for debt service, and that's any type of operating budget that has about 40% debt service. It puts us in a tough, difficult spot. It's going to create a high rate environment, and it's also going to create constraints on what we can spend today. So getting that down to manageable 10% debt levels and 20% it just helps the operation, and it's going to come down, and it's going to help the customers as well.
Got it.
Yeah. One thing the city over the past probably 5 to 10 years has been intent on the council, and there's been, different administrations and stuff. So it used to be there was one pot of money, and maybe that made perfect sense when the city was smaller. Well, we started thinking, well, we need to, and it goes back to the rates. You got to identify your costs, and then you know how much you need to bring in to pay for things and, establish a reasonable reserve. Well, you start untangling these things, and you have a better understanding of where your issues are, and then how do we approach it? How do we deal with it and fix it?
You mean this doesn't get fixed day one on your mayor term?
It takes a while to untangle things, and budgets are always a year ahead, right?
Yeah,
so you just feel like you're riding the tiger sometimes, but it's all good.
Riding the tiger, I'm going to use that sometime.
Yeah.
I know some communities around us have 2 water meters, and now we've switched over. City of Buffalo. We have like smart meters?
That's part of another layer of how to overcome this is innovation, right?
Sure.
Getting on-site metering taken care of, having a remote read, so an AMI system is projected to go in. It's going to be 100% covered, the electric side. We do have smart meters on the water side called AMR. It's a drive-by system. We are going to use that AMR system as long as we can, and then layer in the AMI system as it continues to trickle out. So that'll be some innovation there to allow us to get to the customer and say, this is when your spikes are. The 2 meters are usually an irrigation meter on the water side.
Yeah.
And we offer irrigation meters to those homeowners as well if they're interested.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah. So that's good information to.
And it's good to split that up, because then if an irrigation meter is in place, then your usage is impacted on the sewer side, right? So keep your house meter focused on the water you're using, and keep your irrigation meter just focused on irrigation. Yeah. That would be a benefit to the customer.
Yeah. I forget who said it, but during the council moderation or
the
forum. The forum that I hosted.
And you did an excellent job.
Well, thank you. That's all I was looking for was the compliment.
He had nothing to say.
I think maybe it was George. He said, you can monitor that water usage, and then it's alerting, saying, hey, go check your toilets or check whatever. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're here. You have an abnormal amount of water going through our pipes here. Is that kind of...
On the AMI system, yes. Yep, it's going to have alerts. The customer eventually will have that power to set their own alerts. And that's the future of where we're heading.
Sure.
The AMR system allows us to do interval data. So if we are having an issue in their utility bill, or they're having an issue, they can give us a call, and we can kind of show them where those spikes are on the AMR side. But we don't have the ability to share that data directly with the customer as we would with the AMI project that's coming.
Sure. So if I'm hearing it correctly, will they have like a portal to look at their usage?
AMI will have a portal, yes.
Sure. Yep. So, and I would feel like it'd probably almost be impossible to monitor everybody's like, hey, 123 Main Street, you're using too much water. I guess I wouldn't like that. Maybe
it alerts
saying,
us.
hey, your big brother's looking at me too much.
It's a nice call though. I mean, right now with on-site metering, it's tough to have that call. Hey, you've had high usage for 2 weeks.
Right.
Well, now at least we get an alert the next day and say, hey, there was some high usage at this address.
Sure.
Give them a call, and it's more efficient and not as costly. So.
Yeah, but they'll be able to eventually put it on their own alerts. Mm-hmm. So, okay, cool.
But I've had, and this is it's kind of a funny thing, because you want to run it like a business. It's a business, but you're also trying to help people use less of it.
Yeah.
So I've gotten heads up from the city. Hey, I had a water softener that was just running all the time, and they're like, hey, your bill's it's higher. We noticed that it's higher, so they contacted me and said, you want to check make sure your toilets aren't running, stuff like that. And I'm thinking, hey, all my stuff's good. Well, the next month they call again, and your bill's going to be higher, so you're going to want to check this out. And sure enough, guy came out, found it right away. He's probably seen it a million times.
Yeah.
So the city it's not our job to spy on anybody, but when billing or whoever sees, hey, you're using way more than normal,
Right.
they'll get a hold of you to
Yeah.
help you out.
Yeah.
Yeah. It meant to be very helpful, not spying.
Right.
Yeah. To fix the problem that you're complaining about.
Well, exactly. People are complaining about high bills, and well, here's one. Let's get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I will say too, before this leaves me, that and I've talked to people. They're complaining about their electric bill from the city, and well, look at your bill. You know, it's water, it's wastewater or water rec. You know, there's stormwater, recycling. There, I mean, there's a lot of stuff on there, and you know, people just oversimplify sometimes.
Sure.
Yeah.
When really there's, well, I mean, you just named it. If you had to pay all those bills separately, you get, oh, okay, well, it's $100.
Yeah.
And that one's $75,
Wow,
and that,
that's high.
instead of $275, that I know that math didn't go up, but I left one of the bills out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, it's educational. I think it's more just kind of take a deep dive into your own bill. If you have questions, can they call? Just say, what am I reading?
Our
looking at here.
utility building staff does a phenomenal job answering those questions. If they ever need to get escalated or if there's some questions, I'm happy to take those calls. Our finance department's happy to take those calls. There's a lot of customer service there if you ever need clarification. And I recommend that.
It'd be a good place to start.
Yeah, it's not
better than Facebook forum.
I was gonna say,
right?
we can't solve problems on social media. But we can sure solve problems.
We can create them.
Yeah. But come talk to us. Come to city council meetings. Have coffee with me. I'm happy to sit down with anybody. So
Sure.
Steve, same.
Generally. No, I'm kidding. That's it's so preferable to talk face to face and really get into things with people. And the Facebook thing. This was probably 4 years ago, but there's some guy just ripping the city regularly on Facebook, and it just so happened I was out with a friend out looking at our cars or something at the street, and this guy comes walking down the street, and we introduce ourselves. And I thought, hey, this is the guy who's and I introduced myself, and I am on the city council. And
did he realize who?
Yeah, well, he must have. And just the nicest guy in the world. No complaints.
Right.
So it's it's
people are brave behind the keyboard sometimes.
Yeah. A little bit. Let's maybe jump into fiber.
Yeah.
Kind of. I know you and Steven were in here. Is that already a year and a half ago or a year ago?
I can't.
A year ago.
Maybe a year ago. Yeah. Good conversation.
But phase 2 coming up.
Yeah, phase 2. It's exciting. Phase 1 is more on the commercial side. We talked about that a year ago. Still open. If you have any questions, we have kind of a sales contractor, Dan Amundsen, doing a lot of our sales and just getting people understanding the fiber from a sales standpoint. So want to put a plug in for him. But phase 2, we have 2,500 to 2,700 opportunities coming in. So kind of south of town. We're trying to get a map out on social media. We've done some door-to-door communication on where we're heading. But it's an exciting build out. It's costly. We're talking millions of dollars, and that'll be in front of council here probably February 18th. So if you're interested, tune into the city council on that. But having 2,700 potentially new customers is an exciting place to be.
Yeah. So just kind of catch everybody up if they didn't watch that last episode.
Sure.
Fiber internet. It's a utility that Buffalo's going to be taking on. It's supposed to be faster fiber optic internet.
The city's used fiber for its own, operations for a long time. I mean, I don't know if it's over a decade, probably is. And it's other people catch wind of things, and to the extent you can hook up a commercial customer typically, or a government organization that you work closely with, you would make it available. So, and you read, I mean, it's not the future, it's the here and now. We were talking to a commercial real estate developer about the new industrial park, and we're like, we got fiber available out there. And he goes, well, that's expected.
Okay.
Cool.
Not much of a sales pitch.
So, right. Yeah. It's like, we thought we'd really impress you with that. But I guess the point is that
You need to learn a magic trick or something when they're not impressed with your
Right.
fiber.
But the good news is we have it and it's available. And I mean, Jason talked to lots of other people and companies. Hey, are you interested in doing this? And it's one of those things. It's a big investment, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. Like with the election, I thought the Journal Press asked what are the three big things, and I thought, well, do I want to put this in there or not? And finally was like, well, let's throw it out there. And everybody I've talked to has been, yeah, we need it. I'm sure there are people that, for whatever reason, won't use it, don't need it, but I think to keep the community going forward, it needs to be there one way or the other. And to the extent we can buy that service and own it and have people, our friends and neighbors, providing it, then we're much better off than we would be with some, multi-state national corporation somewhere.
Yeah. So now I'm going to play devil's advocate on that. Of some pushback that I've heard on it is like, well, they shouldn't be into that utility. I mean, why don't we open that up to the free market?
Yeah.
It's like, why are you doing this? And don't get into another wild marsh of like losing money. And is the city of Buffalo capable of handling it
Great question.
fairly without going into a bunch more debt and then costing and just pissing everybody off?
When you look at the issue, the rhetoric is the same, eerily the same as the arguments when electricity was becoming a thing.
Sure.
And the city of Buffalo has operated an electric utility for over 100 years, and there's 120 some around the state and 2,000 or so in the U.S. So the city can absolutely provide this service. We're in the business of providing infrastructure, utility services, and we view the fiber as a utility. I think most people would. So it's not private enterprise as we typically think of it, like, a real estate business or a restaurant or some of these things. It's more or less a natural monopoly where it's more efficient for one entity to come in and provide, say, electric service in a city than to have street by street competition, because the
like the
costs
highway
are
department, or like
more or
interstate,
less. So obviously there's some different technologies with internet, but I think clearly, and most people would agree, the fiber is the future proof is, the phrase you see it. The fiber itself lasts a long time. It's a lot of bandwidth depending on your electronics on the other end. So I think it's worth talking about, but when I look at it, I would rather be buying that service from people I know, that the money's flowing back into town and getting, moved around the community to a much larger extent than it would be otherwise.
Sure. Yeah. I really like that answer of, well, it's a newer technology, just like electricity. I didn't realize we ran it for 100 years for electricity in the city of Buffalo.
Well over 100.
So, it's faster. Everything we talked a bit before we pushed record is same upload and download speed.
Yep, symmetrical. So the simplified mission is it's fast, it's reliable, and it's local.
Yeah.
The fast being we offer gig services right now. With this phase 2, we can offer up to 10 gig services. No one needs a 10 gig service right now, but there's a few businesses in town that might pick that up. So that's an exciting advancement. And I think we talked about this a year ago being scalable. So we put this fiber in the ground. It lasts 70, 80 years. We're going to scale that up with the new electronic pieces to it. So that's where it really becomes a utility at that point. The phase 2 also brought in the reliability sector. We have 5 locations of central offices, so having outages will be minimal. The big outage that we can't protect is having the transmission fiber. If that gets cut coming into town, that's a bad day.
Yeah.
But as far as distributing that transmission, we have, again, 5 locations where we shouldn't be having outages at all. So
Sure. And then just a reminder, it's not BWIG.
No.
You know, again, you know, you'll hear that from a certain amount of people. We talked about that a lot.
Yep.
It's not that.
No, the glass comes into the house, you know, so we're not fiber to the curb. We're not fiber to the neighborhood. We're fiber into your home. And so that's a huge piece to it too. You're not going to have any reduction in speed. You know, BWIG was air and our RF signals. And, you know, we had some people leave us for 5G, and they came back within a week. So it's a neat story too, where you know, 5G is a little cheaper. Maybe I think it's $10 right now. Our base package is $65, and they usually come back. Well, it was buffering at certain points of the day. That glass in your home is just a reliable, consistent speed. If you get 300 megabits per second, you're going to get 275 megabits per second.
Yeah.
You're not gonna. It's not gonna be at 8 p.m. It's 80 megabits per second. So it's a huge. It is the best and fastest technology.
Well, can we speed this up?
Yeah.
Leo Lane would really you're selling me here.
I thought you meant the conversation. I was like, jeez, Mark.
No,
Go get a coffee.
The installation.
Eat a Snickers or something.
Yeah. No,
Well, we're city guys talking about infrastructure, so you know it's
it's
kind of
Too funny.
it's like a offensive lineman. If nobody's calling your number, you're having a good day, right?
Right.
So it just needs to be there, needs to work.
Exactly.
And forget about it.
Yeah.
Can we? A lot of people probably haven't met you or talked to you. A lot of people have, but you're the new mayor of Buffalo.
All right.
Can
It's
you
a great
just
country we live in.
introduce yourself to those who don't know you and a little bit of your background and
Is this
history of
camera
Buffalo?
actually on? Should I look at that thing? Or?
Don't worry about the cameras.
What do I do with my hands?
Yeah.
I like that.
So I'm Steve Downer. My wife Lisa and I, we moved out to Buffalo 35 years ago with our 3 kids at that time. We have 4. They're grown. They got their own families going on. So I worked for the Minnesota Municipal Utilities Association. And it was headquartered in Buffalo at the time. It was maybe 1990 or so. I was going through the Star Tribune want ads like we used to do back
I have
at that
no
time.
idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I saw this ad for this job in Buffalo, and I didn't know where Buffalo was, but I thought, well, that sounds kind of up my alley, so I applied. And they were foolish enough to hire me, and so we moved out here, and it was this is great. We love it out here, and so I worked with city-owned electric utilities, and I was their communications guy, PR guy. So I got to go all over the state and meet with these people and see what they were doing. And that was pretty neat. And then you just get to have a lot of respect for the people doing that stuff because they're just down to earth. They want the best thing for their cities, and they're not out looking for a lot of glory. They just want to do the job. And
Take the punches.
Yeah, over time, I thought, well, because people were calling me asking for advice on this or that or just information, I thought, maybe I could be some use here. Mm-hmm. So, and there was an open seat, and I applied, and I think there were 7 or 8 of us running for this seat, and I got like 18% of the vote, and it was enough.
Yeah.
I had a mandate.
Steve Downer.
I got in there.
It's enough.
It's barely. Parentheses. So, and it's been good and enjoyable, and for the most part. I mean, there are times, but and then Terry Lockermeyer was not going to run again, and some people who I like and respect said, "Hey, you should run for mayor." And after wrestling with that for a while, I thought, well, people need to do this sort of thing.
Yep.
So here I am.
Here you are on the Buffalo Community Podcast.
Right.
Awesome.
It's amazing. What a trajectory, huh?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We expect that to be like on the top of your resume, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and maybe someday you'll get to be on twice, like Jason.
That's
here.
right.
Like,
Get to be a veteran.
Yeah.
Veteran over here,
Yeah. No, that's great. I appreciate the service you you give to our
You're
community
welcome.
and making this a great place to live and continue to be a great place to live. And in 2028, you promised our water utilities will be the cheapest in the if I'm summarizing correctly.
29.
Is that
is
29?
gonna be a lot
Okay,
better.
Yeah. No,
They'll
that's
be better.
yeah. Awesome. Well, I hope people, I know I learned something, and I hope maybe we've helped answer a few questions, but I think my advice, take it or leave it, is educate yourself before you're jumping on social media. Call, get
Talk
your
to us.
questions
Yep.
answered. If you're not getting anywhere, if you're not getting, sure, social media can be a powerful tool to change something.
Misinform people.
But I'd love to see cordial, reasonable conversation regarding some of this stuff, and you're open to those conversations.
Absolutely. We want to hear from people. And, oftentimes you sit there and think, I wonder what people think about this, And my wife will go, hey, this is going on Facebook. And it's like,
We're getting another Chipotle?
another coffee shop.
Yeah, right.
So you absolutely want to talk to people, because I don't know everything, and there's aspects, nuances that I haven't thought of, and people bring things to your attention a lot of times. So it's definitely like that.
Yeah. Face to face is always much better because, the difference of reading the words "that's great" on Facebook, it's like "that's great" or "hey, that's great." Same words,
right.
But say it in person.
Different tone.
But,
Yep.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Jason and Steve, thank you for coming in.
Thanks for
really
having us.
appreciate it, and good luck with your mayor term, and
Appreciate
go from
that.
there. And
Yeah.
Jason, good luck with the expansion of Phase 2 for the fiber. But for the Buffalo Community Podcast, I'm Tyler Reiss.
I'm Mark Benzer. Steve Downer.
Jason Musburger. Get veteran.
Yeah,
Let the newbie go.
Thanks for listening to the Buffalo Community Podcast, produced by Edlund Media. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube, as well as anywhere you listen to podcasts.